You're back. Happy to have you tuning into the final lesson in this module where our focus will shift from the 9 big rocks of life to the pebbles and the sand. We'll be chatting about letting go, outsourcing, and automating. Let's begin.
Okay, so the last few lessons, obviously, we discussed the big rocks within the jar. In this lesson, what I really want to discuss is the jar. And the jar, as you probably guessed, represents time. So if I had the quadrants up, you would remember that one of the main currencies of action is time. So let's look at the topic of time. When there are too many competing demands on our time and attention, our ability to be present is diminished, and with it, our ability to appreciate and enjoy the experience. Seneca says, to be everywhere is to be nowhere. And my favorite guy, Tal Ben-Shahar, he says, time pressure is pervasive and, to some extent, accounts for the culture-wide increase in rates of depression. Don't worry, he has more goodness. Psychologist Tim Kaiser shows in his research that time affluence is a consistent predictor of well-being, whereas material affluence is not. Time affluence is the feeling that one has sufficient time to pursue activities that are personally meaningful, to reflect, and to engage in leisure. So we're all pretty unique beings. And when I hear that there's something that's a consistent predictor of well-being, I know that it deserves my attention. So what he's saying here, and it kind of goes back to what we talked about with money for the sake of money, just to buy stuff, isn't really going to increase your well-being. If you are purchasing, if you're really engaging in your stuff and style in a way that's inspiring and authentic, and you're using money to support that, completely different conversation, right? But just acquiring to acquire doesn't do anything for us. However, liberating time so that we can decide what to do with it is a huge predictor of whether or not you're going to feel healthy, happy, and, as he said, be a consistent predictor of well-being. So let's talk about this. So we talked about the big rocks. We've just realized that the jar equals time. What we haven't really talked about are the pebbles in the sand. And one thing that I don't really love about the jar analogy is that it's not talking about how to get rid of some of those pebbles in sand, right? The pebbles in the sand are things we can let go of. They are things we can automate, and they are things we can outsource. So that's what we're going to talk about here. How can we liberate time so we can invest it more in the things that actually matter? And so the first thing that we need to address is the fact that, once again, because our culture values depletion, should probably mark these now. There it is. So because our culture values this, if you are defaulting to cultural standards, you will not be affluent in time. This is not time affluence. This is time affluence. Okay, so once again, we can't default to what is normal in our culture if we want to get here. And that is in regards to time as well. And so we're going to start this conversation. Again, letting go, automating, and outsourcing, I think, are what we can do with the sand and the pebbles. And so let's start with the idea of letting go. And I love this quote, if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. So I think there's pretty much two ways of letting go of the pebbles in the sand. And one is saying no, and one is quitting things that we're already doing. That's it. Say no ahead of time, quit it in the midst of it. Okay? And that can be incredibly uncomfortable. In this sort of culture, saying no or quitting is not looked upon very highly. But I have a question to ask you, and that is, why not choose the discomfort that's going to get you what you want versus the discomfort that's going to keep you stuck where you are? So before we dive into letting go, let's really think about this concept because it's important. Our culture, and this relates to the conversation about delayed gratification. Okay, so I'll get to that. Our culture values comfort and then discomfort, meaning this is what's normal in our culture. To a certain extent, it's comfortable. Nobody's going to question you if you're doing this. But the result is you're chronically uncomfortable. You're unmotivated and unconscious. You're intimidated. You're depleted. What we have to do to get to here is realize that there's going to be discomfort because it's going to look different than what other people are doing. You're not going to get necessarily a lot of praise for doing this. But then the result is deep, lasting, transformational comfort. And I think, in my opinion, that's what I think is a beautiful definition of delayed gratification. It's not do something you hate now so that later you can have something you think you want. It's not unhappy now to happy later. It's, am I willing to be a little bit uncomfortable because this isn't normal, this isn't what the culture says I can do, but I know it's going to lead to this. Does that distinction make sense?
Yes.
Any questions about that?
Will you just restate it again?
Yeah.
Just that last.
So I think the bottom one, comfort to discomfort, is what we do in our culture. And that comfort is simply 99% of people are doing this. And so if you are doing this as well, not a lot of people are going to question you. There's comfort in that. There's comfort in numbers. But it leads to being chronically uncomfortable.
Okay.
Because you don't feel good. When you start to do things different than the default standards of our society, it's uncomfortable. Discomfort first. But it leads to comfort. And so my point is, if you're going to have discomfort anyways, why not choose the discomfort that leads to this instead of having your daily life be just chronic discomfort? It's going to be there anyways. You can't, it's the language of life, discomfort, right? So embrace the discomfort that gets you here.
And Alicia, I would even argue that if you're on the vicious triangle, you're going from discomfort to discomfort.
Yeah, absolutely. It's discomfort to discomfort, but there's a certain amount of comfort in being doing the V180 because we see everybody do it.
Yep.
So that's what I mean by the discomfort. So it's discomfort to discomfort to discomfort, but doing the vicious cycle for some reason is a little bit comfortable because, you know, the person next to you is doing it and the person next to you is doing it.
And it's familiar.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's that.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
It's that path that we've been on in our brain. They're a little.
Well
slowed
put.
down, right?
Yeah.
Even if something is uncomfortable, there's comfort in the familiarity of it.
Yep.
Yeah. So, saying no and quitting is uncomfortable, but when it is done with the intention of getting here, it's worth it. So let's talk about some of the discomforts that arise if you say no or you quit something. The first would be, I've been doing it for so long, I can't just change my mind. Like, why can't you just change? You know, you can't suddenly have a different idea about something. It was working and then it wasn't. But yes, you can. You totally can. I love this quote. Do I contradict myself? Very well, then, I contradict myself. I am vast. I contain multitudes. So something maybe worked for you in the past, but if you're truly transforming, that means you're going to have new ideas and new priorities. Things are going to change. And so to quit something or to say no to something doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's not a match to you anymore. And I think getting good at quitting and saying no is actually a really great indication that you are transforming. When you're constantly doing this, then your ideas stay the same, your problems stay the same. You have this kind of level, this idea of who you are. And then you often think things are a match to you for a really long time. But when you start to realize, like, that's not a match to me anymore, that's not bad, it's just not a match to me, that is an indication of true transformation. You're really starting to think about things, you're questioning things, which is, again, uncomfortable, but then leads to more of this. The second thought, when it comes to quitting or saying no, that might come up is it's selfish. And in response to that, I absolutely love this quote: "You are not required to set yourself on fire to keep others warm." And this is the assumption here. Set yourself on fire, keep others warm. It doesn't work. It's not logical. You cannot get poor enough to help poor people thrive, or sick enough to help sick people get well. You can only ever uplift from your position of strength and clarity and alignment. To say I love you, you must first be able to say the I. So suddenly, you start to see that what, from this point of view, you labeled as selfish, it's actually quite selfish, if I'm being very frank, to continue to think that you need to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. It's selfish because it doesn't work. You're avoiding the discomfort of what actually does work, of getting here. So you're saying, I need to set myself on fire to keep others warm because I'm more comfortable doing this. When what actually works is deciding some upfront discomfort's going to happen because I'm breaking away from what's familiar, but this is what actually works. This is selfish, this is kind. When you do what's true for you, you are also doing what's best for them. And then in direct opposition to setting yourself on fire to keep others warm, a candle loses nothing by lighting another candle. And then finally, be like the fountain that overflows, not like the cistern that merely contains. So here, we are just a container. I mean, if we can just hold ourselves together, we think we're doing okay. Here, you have stuff to give. So once again, we have falsely labeled this as unselfish, and this as selfish. But when you look at it through logical eyes, it's the exact opposite. Suddenly, it becomes the most important thing to do. If you really want to impact others, it becomes the most important thing to do for you to get here. So take a breath on that. Write down any discomforts that come up. Well, let me think about it. I think I like was sticking with the normal question. Write down the top insights that come up along the lines of letting go. We're going to move on from letting go to outsourcing. So again, we're talking about the sand and the pebbles. How can you ask people for help or pay for help so that those things you don't have to do as much? And just like everything else, this is a very individual choice. What someone might outsource that feels inspiring might be someone disengaging. So for example, like grocery shopping. For some people, maybe grocery shopping and meal planning is a really important part of engaging with their food, of what they consume. So that big rock of what you're consuming. For other people, it's not. So that is something they could ask for help around, and it wouldn't affect their big rock at all. Do you understand that? So it's super personal. But what I really want to talk about here is how we don't seem to value outsourcing in our culture. Again, we live here. We value being exhausted and depleted. And so when we aren't valuing outsourcing, well, let me start here. I love these two quotes on outsourcing or help or support, whatever you want to call it. My favorite mantra, which I share in all my seminars, whether I'm talking about happiness, success, love, or abundance, is that if you're alive, you need help. There's no real shame in asking for help, only strength and power and the chance for greater happiness. Unhappiness disappears into the truth. And the truth is that you are not meant to do your life on your own. That's what unhappiness is really trying to teach you. Here's the basic rule for winning success. Let's mark it in the mind and remember it. The rule is success depends on the support of other people. The only hurdle between you and what you want is the support of other people. So it costs no money to make a mindset shift from outsourcing is bad or lazy or not for me, essentially devaluing outsourcing, to starting to baby step by baby step value it. And I feel like this is really important because when we are valuing outsourcing, we're not only valuing ourselves, but we're also valuing other people's skills. We're valuing their experiences. We're valuing their education. Take a breath on outsourcing. And then just write down ideas of what you could potentially outsource in your life. What you'd love to outsource. And right now, don't even think about the money. Just like if you had a magic wand and you didn't have to do this, what would you love to no longer do? And then finally, let's talk about automating stuff, automation. I think of automation as using technology and or routines and systems to just liberate energy, time, and thoughts around things. I'll give an example. When I first started my business, I didn't know that email servers could automate emails to people. So someone would sign up for my newsletter, and I would send them a manual email back with the free opt-in that they get. So I think I was giving something around cravings. So whenever I got to my email, I would see there was a new subscriber, and I would literally send them an email back. When I learned that that could be automated, that was lovely. And so suddenly now it's a win for everybody. They're not waiting for me to give it back. I don't have to spend the time doing it or thinking about it. And now my impact isn't limited to my time. The automation, it's only limited to the capacity of the automation. It's beautiful. It's amazing when you really think about it. So automation is powerful. And I, once we complete this lesson, want to have some conversations about what you guys do to automate that's really helpful and what you're wanting to get automated, so maybe we can brainstorm some things. But to start that conversation, I'll just tell you some of the things I do, my husband and I do in our personal life just to liberate some time and energy. And we'll start with Amazon. When there's a product that we like that we know we're going to run out of, we just automate it. So the example is we love this soap. It's Swedish Dream Soap. It's just a salt soap, circle. I don't know. We love it for some reason. We don't want any other soap. If we run out of it, it's a big bummer. Can't buy it at the grocery store. So I just noticed how long it takes us to go through the soap. It's 3 weeks-ish. And so every 2 months, come in a pack of 3. We have it automated that it shows up at our door. I don't have to think about it. I get my soap. You know what I mean? Now, here's an interesting point. I could buy the pack of 12, but my thoughts on that changed when I read this book. Have you heard of it? People have a love-hate relationship with this book. I will say that this book did change my life in a lot of different ways. And one thing she brought up was what we're paying stores to do is store stuff for us. And so if we start to have our house become a store and we're literally paying for square footage for things that we don't need to store, it's kind of, it doesn't necessarily make sense. Now, don't get me wrong. I think there are definitely times where buying in bulk makes sense. But for me, especially because currently my husband and I live in a pretty small farmhouse, we don't have a ton of storage. If there's something I can automate instead of store, that's what I choose. Does that make sense? Now, another thing this book helped me with is bring automation to processing papers. So this all came from the book. I don't remember how she described it, but first she talked about having like a box or something for what's in your purse. And I love that because I always just kept things in my purse and I didn't know what was in there and it got all, and then you had to change purses. And so now my husband and I have a purse box. He has his own, we can call it a wallet box, whatever. And it's just like what you'd put in your coats or things when you are leaving. And then right when we get home, we're practicing emptying our coats and purses. And we each have our own box. We have a little like console table right by our door. We drilled holes in the back to put our phone chargers, so that's where our phones stay too, and they're charged. And so coming and going, it just all goes in that drawer. The drawers look like a mess, but to us they're not because it's just our purse drawers. It's whatever goes in our purse or coats. So it's our purse box. So we have our purse box, and then from this book she talked about having, I think this is the way she described it, box 1, 2, and 3 for paperwork. So instead of trying to file all this stuff, just have boxes that signify, what the boxes signify is box 1 is things that need to be taken care of immediately or soon. Box 2 is things you keep for an indefinite amount of time. And box 3 is things that you keep kind of forevermore. Okay? So she said we spend so much time like trying to file these things when really it's not that much stuff. And if you know what box it goes into, you can find it immediately. And I found that to be incredibly true. Like I know it makes sense. Oh, that would be in box 2. So I look through the paperwork. There's all this random stuff in box 2, but I find it. And so then when paperwork comes in, I'm not wasting all this time and energy like, where does this go? Where does this go? It goes in box 1, 2, or 3. Does that make sense? So that's been helpful, really helpful for me. And just to give examples, so like box 1 might be a bill you need to pay. Box 2 might be, like for us right now, it's the lease on the place we're renting. So it's something we need to keep as long as we're renting there, but it doesn't need to go in box 3 because once we're done renting there, we're not going to have it. Box 3 is things like medical records, your marriage license, stuff like that. I also have found myself getting overwhelmed by what to do with photos and keepsakes. So, and that brings up a good point. When I start to feel overwhelmed by something that happens on a regular basis, I know I need to bring automation to it. I know I need to figure out how to process it. Otherwise, it's every time it comes up, it's wasting my time and energy. And so what I've started to do with photos is once a month, I upload them off my phone to Dropbox. Then I upload them to, it's an app like Instaprints or something. So I just print the ones I like. They go into a photo album. And if they're ones like I really like, I have this like board for cards and photos. Then I'll print 2 of those, and it gets to go on the board for a little bit so I can look at it. And then once the board gets full, I read this book called The Perfectly Imperfect Home, and it's about how to make your home cozy. And she talks about how it's just really cozy to have prints just like on like your side table and stuff, so when people come, they can just like go through prints. So then off the board, it goes to like a little, just where people can look through prints when I want to clear my board. And then I have a box for keepsakes. So if I get a card in the mail, I'll put it on the board for a while, and then once I need to clear the board, I'll take it and I'll be like, do I just want to appreciate this and toss it, or is it one that I want to keep? And then I have a box right by all my box 1, 2, and 3 where I put the cards. And then once a year, bring that down to like a storage thing. I know that sounds silly, but I'm telling you, it's liberated so much time and energy, because then every time I go to the mailbox, I'm not like, oh God, what do I do with this thing? What do I do with that? I've brought automation to it, and now it doesn't overwhelm me. That make sense? Another simple thing we do is we have in our porch a bench that it like opens their storage, and we just put a garbage bag in there for Goodwill. So every time I don't want something, instead of it just hanging out in my house, I just put it in the bench. When the bag is full, put it in the car, go to Goodwill. These things are simple. This is not rocket science. The last thing I'll tell you about is we use the app Google Keep, my husband and I, and it's an awesome app. We use it for our shopping list and then gift ideas. So he has it, I have it, I can share different lists with him. And so as soon as I need something, I just put it on the list. As soon as he needs something, you put it on the list. And then anybody who goes to the grocery store, we just look at the list. So we don't have to call, we don't have to text, it's just whatever's on Google Keep is what we need. And then with gift ideas, we just have lists for people we buy gifts for on a regular basis, family, friends, whether it's birthdays or Christmas or otherwise. And when we get ideas, we just plop the link in there so that, you know, it doesn't come 6 months later, you're not like, what was that thing that I really like? Okay? Those are the ideas I got. Take a second just to write down anything that you're doing right now that really works, that you'd be willing to share. And then secondly, anything that's bugging you and you don't know how to bring automation to it. We're going to finish up this conversation about engagement and big rocks and small pebbles, whatever metaphor you want to use, with 2 thoughts. And the first is I want to make sure we remember why we're wanting to liberate time. And that is not to disengage, but that's to engage with other things that are important. A few years ago, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, I watched a documentary. I think it was on food. I cannot remember what it was. But it opened up with a guy saying that when he was a freshman in college, he had a roommate who was an international student. And that roommate said something about how he noticed that Americans, their number one priority is convenience. And when I heard that, it really stuck with me. I think, if I remember right, I had recently gotten back from Taiwan. My husband and I spent a year there teaching. And in Taiwan, it was so eye-opening how conditioned I was to convenience. Because I was used to going from my house into my garage, into a warm car, and then you go to the grocery store, and then you go in the grocery store, and it's warm. You know, we have a culture that really values convenience. And there's certainly nothing wrong with that, as we're going to talk about. But in stark contrast, in Taiwan, I was going up and down stairs. People were driving their kids on scooters, and their kid is sitting below. And you walk outside to get where you need to get your groceries in the rain. It's just not as convenient, and that's an understatement. And so I started to realize, or when I heard that, I realized he's very right. And I realize now that the problem isn't convenience in and of itself. It's when we use convenience as respite for this, and we think convenience means this. Does that make sense? So we don't use convenience to support this. We use it because we're in self-preservation mode. And I notice this happening a lot in our culture in regards to retirement as well. We think retirement is the answer to this because we think this is the only solution, right? But what we really are craving is this. And so what I notice, obviously I'm not retired, so I haven't had this experience, but what I seem to, what I've noticed is that if you haven't practiced this, you haven't practiced this. And so maybe you are retired, you don't have to go to work anymore, but what you've practiced is this. And so until you practice something new, you're going to find a new way to do this. Would you agree? And so the only way to get off of the V180 is to start practicing this more and more. And convenience can be used to support this, but when it's used for this purpose, it isn't very satisfying. And I love, if you look here, this is the quote we started this lesson off with. Look at what he says at the end, to engage in leisure. That's very different than this, right? When you engage in rest and you engage in play, that's very different than convenience for convenience sake. So convenience in and of itself will not increase your happiness. But using convenience to support free and engaged living will skyrocket your joy. Same with free time. This happened to me in Taiwan. We had a lot of free time in Taiwan. The most free time I had in my adult life, I did not know what to do with it. I was not happy. I mean, I practiced being happy, but I thought free time was the answer because I was so practiced in here. And it took me a long time to get off of this dance, this vicious cycle in that particular season of my life. I'm not kidding you. One day my husband and I watched 5 movies in a row. And then we did not feel well. So we were like, what just happened? Liberating time to engage with what you deem important will increase your joy. So it's free time for a purpose. What are you going to do with it? Again, it's similar to money. Money for the sake of money is pointless. But when you put your money behind what you feel is important, different story. Time for the sake of time, pointless. They're currencies. And the last thing I'll leave you with, a lot of these things we talked about, especially with outsourcing and automating, they're pretty proactive. You have to invest time to get the time back, right? So I just want to leave you with the 3 things I like to do if I haven't invested that time and my jar is overflowing with rocks and pebbles and sand. And that is to think about how could I combine my big rocks. So I'll go back to the big rocks here. Meaning, is there a way, like for me, playing volleyball in the summer at my family's lake place is combining rocks. I get physical activity, my family is there, and it's fun. So I'm combining 3 rocks. How could you sprinkle it in? So just because these are called big rocks doesn't mean you have to have chunks of time for them. Sprinkling in is a beautiful way to engage with your big rocks. A quick nap. 1 minute of planks before you jump in the shower. 1 minute of planks before you have dinner. Sprinkling in your big rocks. Spirituality. 10 minutes of reading a good book that inspires you. And then finally, redefining. So if your jar is overflowing, sometimes you have to redefine what's happening if you don't want to feel bad. Meaning, maybe your house is a complete mess and all the dishes are done. And you could say, I'm really not engaging with my stuff and my style. Oh, I'm letting that rock go. Or you could say, that is a symbol that I engaged with exercise today. I didn't have time for it all, but that quote-unquote mess is actually symbolizing that I really engaged with something important. Maybe you have your friends over, you have a party, and your place is a mess for 4 days. That mess is a symbol I engaged with fun. I played. I engaged with relationships. So my stuff and style hasn't caught up. Who cares? There's power in that because what we typically do is think of all the things we're not engaging with and beat ourselves up about that, when we could acknowledge what we are engaging with and go off of that momentum. Engagement. Take a breath. Write down anything that comes to you, and we'll chat quick. All right. I'd be curious to know, let's start with letting go. Anything come up for any of you around that? I'm going to try to keep this around 10 to 15 minutes because we're a little over time.
Yeah, don't want to let go of anything.
In a good way, like you, I really.
I feel pretty good about my pebbles and sand. I've got maybe 2 things I need to let go of, and one's really hard. And that's I'm a Lake Association president, and I just can't seem to get anybody who wants to do the job. So I've been redefining that job and not doing what I think other people want me to do, and letting go of people saying, well, I think you should do this, and just going, no, this is important, because I thought about letting it go, and if I let it go, there's to me personally, there's too much important stuff going on in that environment, and my investment of time and emotion and money that I'm not ready to let go.
Totally valid.
Otherwise, the rest is clutter in my house. Even though I've done the whole thing, where does it come from?
Because it's maintenance.
It's my roommates.
Your roommates.
I'll talk more at outsourcing and automation.
Anything else around letting go? Either something you just want to say, I want to let go, or discomforts or excitement around it?
I really want someone to design and decorate our new house. We bought a new house a few months ago, and we have tattered, borrowed furniture. We just need to be adults now and get some real stuff. But I'm overwhelmed by the options, and I don't want to spend any time on it. So my sister told me last week about someone who actually she knows that does this.
Cool.
They can just do that. And I was like, yeah, that's how Oprah designs her house. Catastrophize how much it's going to cost when it might not actually be that much for how much time it would give me back.
And how much
go,
joy.
Here
if
are
you
the
really...
3 tables. Choose from these 3 tables. That meet your style.
Plus, it gives you the ability to say somebody else picked it out if you see something later that you want better.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, well, I didn't pick that one. She did.
Right.
Let's open up the conversation to everything. Outsourcing, automation, letting go. I guess what stuck out to you the most? Stuck. It's a new word.
I would like it if somebody would cook 2 meals a week, walk the dogs in the winter, till and plant my gardens that I have designed, drive me around, wash my pots and pans and clean the kitchen each night. You know, the stuff that can't go in the dishwasher, and then that level layer of just crap that ends up. My roommates again. Because I can't seem to train them. That's what I would like. And then automation, these are 3 things that I do that have dramatically helped my life. I can't believe how they've helped me. I automated all of my bills. So I set up one email just for bills and personal correspondence and keep my work separate. I automated all the bills. And when paper comes in the door, I go right and stand in front of recycling, and I go bing, 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 bing. And if there's something important, then I act on it. Otherwise, I get rid of it. Then we're an Apple family, which was a feat to get my husband to go there, but we got him there. So we use notes. So we have lists in notes. And so I love it because I'm literally at the grocery store and Marissa will be adding things. Or I'll give her a section of it. And then I set up reminders on my phone. You guys probably do that. Then the other thing that has had a lot of impact is I remember my grandmother always having days to do everything. My great-grandmother. Tuesday was, laundry of sheets, and the next day, okay, so I just took that simply. So on Thursday night, I do my personal laundry. I don't do anybody else's laundry. I only do mine. All my roommates are in charge of their own laundry.
You've outsourced laundry to them.
I outsource laundry to them. So Thursdays I do my laundry, and then Friday when I get home, I put together all my outfits for the week. So when I get up, all I have to do is go to my closet and go, I have 5 outfits. Which one do I want? And I'll hang my jewelry on there and a scarf and whatever. That's huge. Yeah. And then I loved your overwhelmed list. That was helpful. So you kind of covered it all.
Thanks for sharing. Good tips.
Who's got good
Anybody
tips?
else? Tips or what they want some help on?
I would like to find a way to deal with all the stuff the kids bring home every day. I mean, next year will be worse again when Henry's in kindergarten because that was the worst year as far as stuff coming home. I mean, how many art projects projects do they do in a teen? Yeah. Right? So Josie was Little Miss Artist. Anytime they had free time, she was drawing, coloring, whatever. But it's like, okay, they bring it home. You clearly can't chuck it in the recycling bin, especially while they're right there.
Right. Yeah.
But then you also feel really bad if you do too. And so, it's like you want to save some of it, but you can't save all of it. And how long do you have to have it around on your counter before they notice that it's not there? Yeah.
Yeah, we have a bulletin board. So in our house we have a bulletin board. So stuff comes home and I look at it. Usually worksheets immediately just get recycled.
Even that, they have a cow.
Do they really? Okay. So maybe it's just I don't let my children have a choice. But also, I mean, I've had lots of children. And then we have a bulletin board, so if I want to keep it or if I like it, we put it on it. I take a picture of the bulletin board, and then we clear it all off, and then we start over. So it's kind of and sometimes I will, because there's certain ones where they're like, oh, but I want to keep it. So I'll let them keep them in their room for a while. But then we have kind of like a place where it's like, I've always gone through it together with them, because I've learned that if I throw something away that I didn't think was important, it's, oh God, Mom, what'd you do? Like I really wanted that gingerbread, whatever. Okay. And to me, I feel like I'm also kind of teaching them like, okay, this is special, and now we let it go, kind of thing. Or they'll agree to like take a picture of it and be done with it and let it go.
That's a good solution, though, the picture.
Yeah,
There's an app for taking pictures too. It's called Archive.
Oh yeah.
And you can sort it by kid.
Oh.
And
So figure that out.
Yeah, and you can also do like if they have an award, you can take a picture of that too. Or something. And maybe one day you'll put it into a book, or maybe you won't. But
Like
you
you
can
have
probably
a
make
box
Shutterfly
of
book.
stuff, but even that is already full, especially
yes.
Josie's stuff that she's in second grade.
And even like with Lily, like I had a box of her stuff, and when she was before we moved was because we were moving, but we went through it, and I said, okay, now when you were in fourth grade, like what was important to you? Because I had saved like some things where she's like, Mom, I don't care about it anymore, and it was like okay, because that wasn't real important to me, but at the time I thought it might be. And yet there were other things that she was like, no, that I remember that project, that was really important, and I still want to hang on to that.
Oh, okay.
And so, and I think even doing that like periodically is helpful, because my mom saved stuff from us, and then it was like, oh no, this big box of crap, and then you're ready, and at that time you're ready to let it go. But I also think it's like helpful for them to kind of go through that process of letting go and growing up. So like, and not just doing it while they're at school and then they're like, Mom, so, which I mean, parents do that too, but I feel like that's important for us to teach our kids, about that kind of stuff too.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't know. I like doing it all kind of at once, and then like I said, a little bit on a daily basis. But I do kind of the box
Those are
thing.
really
I like the
great
box thing.
ideas.
Yeah.
Well, and what I love what you said too is like, I feel like automation equals processing.
Yeah.
So it's just like, how am I processing life? What comes to me? And if I'm constantly feeling stuck about it, I got to think about a different way to process it. So it's not, like we talked about, like digestion. It's not constant discomfort. It's like finding a different way to deal with it. So I like that.
Yeah. A lot of what you talked about. There are two particular books around ADHD, because I didn't find out I was ADHD until 2 years ago. And once I found out and I studied it, it made so much more sense. And the books talk about ways to organize your life to make it easier for you to function. And one of the things that I had to learn to do, they call it the brutal purge. And you have to learn to like cut stuff out, because for a person with ADHD, having too many options is like paralysis. So we culled down all the stuff in our house so that like if you open a cabinet door or a shoe shelf or whatever, there should never be like 10 options. There should be like 2. You should be able to see space in between stuff and pull it out. So it had a lot of stuff in it, both for adults and kids. So if you're interested, I can give you the name of that. Because it had something similar about how to do mail. And it was like when mail comes in, that's exactly what you do. You either recycle it right away, or you put it in happens within 30 days, or this is the kind of keep indefinitely. So that helped. And then we use the Cozy Family app. And
What's that?
It's like
and we use the paid version, which is, I mean, it's $20, but it's $20 for a whole year, and I actually just renewed it this week because it was worth it. And so we can put shopping lists, we can put to-do lists on there, we can put like lists of movies we want to watch together. We do grocery shopping. We do all of our calendars. So now when we go to our doctor's appointments, before we schedule a follow-up, the first thing we do is look at Cozy to see like what each other has going on. And you can put like addresses in there, and it has like recipes, and I mean it's like the best app ever. Cool. I love it. So
Well, and it's such a good point. Like even the archive app,
Yeah, I wanna
there
look at that
really
one.
are so many apps now.
yeah.
So not that technology or apps solve everything, but I think for a lot of things, if you're like, this is bugging me,
Yep.
there is probably an app for it.
Right.
You
There-
know,
there's
it's
an
amazing.
app called Rover.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on it actually for walking dogs, or like
Oh.
if you're out of town, they can either host your dog for you or come to your house and care for your dog. There's Instacart. I worked for Instacart, and that is a pretty awesome way to get things done. There was another one you mentioned that you said you want somebody else to do it for you.
Somebody come over and wash my pots and pans.
Oh no, I know what it
love to
was.
cook.
You
Yeah,
said the
I've
meals.
always got
I'm the
that.
same way
You said the
too.
meals. I was like, 2 of the 4 I can help you with. So, the meals, when I was single and I worked all the time, I actually had a personal chef, and she would come and we would sit down and make menus. And then once a month, she would get up, go to the grocery store, buy all the stuff, come to my house, cook it all, put it in like prepackaged containers. So it's like my own individual frozen meals.
Yeah.
And then I would have like 20 meals, so like 5 entrees, 2 of which would be like a casserole or something, full entree. And then she'd clean the house and she'd leave. And it was the best thing ever. And people would be like,
What do you call this?
"Oh, this must be so nice, Christina. You must make a lot of money." And the one person who got it was my dad, who's super miserly. And he was like, "Oh no," he was like, "That's the best thing you could have ever done," because I ate out every meal.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And
You probably
I never cooked because it was
saved
just
money
me.
anyway.
Yeah.
And I did. I saved a ton of money. I ate better because she
Right.
like cooked me vegetables and stuff like that. And it was really great. So you don't have to, like what I do now when I'm in a place where, because my wife can't cook. So when I'm not up to cooking for us, I do like the Lund's hot bar, or I look for meals that all she has to do is put it in the oven. And I don't have to like come home from work and then go in the kitchen and cook. So
Cool.
But
That's
so
cool.
much of that is about mindset too, because like I have friends now. We talk about like a cleaning person, you know, like, and I have friends that be like, once I actually found out what it costs for a cleaning person to come to my house and like just, and they don't have to do everything, but they can do the things you hate to do. Like I literally have a friend who just has them come do bathrooms.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can do that, and
Yep.
then when they put a price tag on it, and they're like, you know what, that is it's a value to my life,
Yes.
you know, to do those things. And it comes around with like stuff with our farm business and stuff. You know, do I want to be my own accountant, or do I want to hire someone to do that kind of stuff? You know, just
Exactly.
like that kind of thing.
It's huge in
And,
business, I think.
Yeah.
you can even hire cleaners off of Amazon now.
Right. Really?
Yep.
And in not earth-shattering new development, but we recently automated something at our house and got a dishwasher for the first time
Thanks,
ever. Yeah, no, that was a mindset thing. Okay,
That
we
is a
were
shift.
raised.
I just recently got one as well when we moved for a new house, like 5
We
months
were
ago.
raised
I'd never
in a
had one in
house
my
without a
life.
dishwasher. I guess I was like, thought, why would I spend the money on doing that project? You know, because I can wash dishes.
That's it. I can do
Because I
that.
can
Is
do
the
it.
thing, and it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's what
Right.
keeps us stuck.
I'm
And
gonna
holy buckets.
I'm gonna
just-
take you one even further. These are all moms, and this is definitely a mind shift in a lot of ways. But that ADHD book, one of the things it taught me was when you buy things, like how, like say you buy paper towels and they come like wrapped in this plastic. Part of what is annoying is like trying to get stuff out of the plastic. So as soon as you buy it, you just take the plastic off and put everything where it is.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things it said was like you have to do things for efficiency and convenience and to like keep yourself going. We maintain disposable everything, and even though I have dishes and we use them and we wash them when we need to, the majority of our meals, I have taught my wife, like, you have to eat this off of a disposable plate or a disposable bowl or use a disposable utensil unless it's not that kind of meal. Because if anything has to be cooked or hand washed, I'm the one who has to do it. And even with our dishwasher, I have to do the bottom shelf and she does the top shelf. And so it's more work and time for me. So my mom would be mortified, like, no.
Yeah.
And some people are like, well, that's, bad for the environment and everything like that. But it is a matter of I'm reducing my carbon footprint overall because I changed my whole lifestyle and how I do things. And it's reducing my stress. It's reducing my time spent in the kitchen.
Yeah.
It's reducing like so many things that for me is worth it.
It's priorities.
But
It's the same.
a lot of people are like, oh God, you can never do
Right.
disposable plates.
Yeah. Right.
You guys bring up such a good point, and it's like, see how individual this is.
Yeah.
Like, for someone who didn't grow up in your household with with no dishwasher, a dishwasher might just be a normal thing, so it's not going to liberate any time.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But for
Yeah.
you, big deal. And then for you have a different situation, and other people might judge it, but it liberates time for other things I can engage with. Not everyone has to eat on disposable plates, but it's helpful for you. This is a very individual journey.
With Module 3 complete, you are officially halfway through the Exercise 180 course. Well done. If you haven't already, take a second to jot down your top insights and takeaways. You may also be interested in checking out the PDFs that correspond with the content from this module. These PDFs contain things like quotes and lists of books and other resources I referenced throughout the last 3 videos. When you're ready, I look forward to seeing you in the next video where we'll shift our focus from the action axis to the perspective axis. See you over there. Module 4, Lesson 1.